Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all of you. A very warm welcome from Little Leaps. It's very wonderful to see you all coming in, joining us today for this meaningful conversation that we keep hosting every month. Um, this time, we have often observed that there are interesting parallels between the first plane of development, which is birth to 6 years, and adolescence, 12 to 18 years, especially between the stages of 0 to 3 and 12 to 15. This curiosity led us to explore this adolescence journey more deeply. So, adolescence is often seen as a stage of growing maturity. We feel like by now the children would be pretty mature to understand stuff, yet, it can be one of the most complex and demanding phases for both children and the adults supporting them. So, while teenagers may appear independent, this phase often brings emotional ups and downs and impulsive behaviors as they are still learning to regulate themselves. So, when not supported mindfully, they may seek belonging in unhelpful spaces as well. So, recognizing how critical this age is, we chose this topic to support parents and educators in navigating adolescence with greater awareness and intention. Today, we are delighted to host Eva Dwight for our webinar on raising responsible, resilient teens. Eva Dwight is an educator, former English language arts teacher, and school counselor, a certified positive discipline trainer, and the ex-program director at the Gurian Institute. Through her work, she has supported countless parents, educators, and adolescents in building respectful relationships, emotional resilience, and responsible decision making. Eva brings deep insight into adolescent development and positive discipline, and we are truly looking forward to learning from her experience and wisdom today. So, Eva, a warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining the Little Leaps community today.
Thank you. I'm just so excited to be here.
Yes, I am too. But before we begin, I would like you to share your journey so far and what made you dive into the world of positive discipline. And I know you have also explored Montessori. Your youngest son was in Montessori, education school, right? So, what made you get into this world?
Well, interestingly, my mother brought me, I was a school teacher. I taught English language arts for 12 years and then earned my master's degree in educational counseling. And I was a school counselor here in the Phoenix, Arizona area for 20 years. I retired from the school system in 2018, but that I'd spent 32 years in the public schools as the teacher and counselor. And so I did not start out with positive discipline skills as a teacher, and I so wish I had. But I gradually learned because when I first started teaching, I thought I had two tools. I had punishment and I had reward. And if neither one of those were working, I had no idea what to do. And so I bounced back and forth between being overly firm and authoritarian and do it because I said so and do it because I'm the teacher and you're the student and you have to do what I say. And the seventh grade students I had were not having that. And so they would push back. And so then I would have to push harder and we'd be in a power struggle all the time until I would just be so fed up. I couldn't stand myself because that's not who I wanted to be. And so the only alternative I had to that was being permissive and trying to be their friend and trying to be so nice that they would want to do what I wanted them to do. And then they walked all over me and that didn't work. So I'd flip between this and that until gradually over time, I figured out, and I like to say it this way, I figured out that I wasn't there to teach English. I was there to teach children. And when I started making connections with them as human beings, then we started to develop relationship. And as we created relationship with each other, guess what? I was able to teach more English. So I didn't understand going into my work as a teacher that that was what needed to come first, was the relationship. And once I figured that out, I really loved my work. Kids learned from me, and I was good at it. And then along the way, I had these two children, and when the older one was 2, my mom, who was a music teacher back in Kansas, happened to take a training for, she needed hours to continue her teaching certificate. She just signed up for this training called Positive Discipline, and she brought me the original book, which Jane Nelson wrote back in 1980. And so this is the mid 90s. And she said, "This is the best training I've ever had. I wish I had had this when you were growing up." And so when I read the book, I thought to myself, I wish you had had this when I was growing up too. Because I love my mother. My parents are good parents. We have a good relationship. And there are so many skills there that really spoke to who I had become as a teacher and who I wanted to be as a parent. And so my husband and I, now our children are 31 and almost 29. And so we've been positive discipline parents for almost 30 years. And at that beginning stage, we understood it at this level. And then along the way, I met my dear friend, Dodie Blomberg, who's a positive discipline lead trainer. We raised our kids together, and she said, "Did you know that you could teach other parents this stuff?" And I said, "Oh, tell me more." So in 2008, I got certified as a parent educator using positive discipline and started teaching positive discipline classes at my school. And then I got certified in the classroom program and was using it in my work as a school counselor with students, with teachers, with parents. And so just increasingly over the years, my husband's and my understanding has gone from here to here. And I'm still learning and growing, because even as I do trainings and opportunities like this, I walk away every single time with a new awareness, something new that I want to work on, or something that reminds me, oh, this is important. I need to focus on this. So I just see positive discipline as an opportunity to learn and grow as human beings. It's not just skills for parenting or teaching, it's skills for humaning together as we walk in the world with our children, with our students, with our spouses, our work colleagues, and our friends. It's a way of being human together. So I hope whatever I'm able to share today will be helpful to whoever is listening, whether you're a parent, a teacher, or just a human being walking in the world.
Absolutely, I'm sure. So you focus primarily on adolescents. What made
Yes, my work was in junior high. So in the US, that's 12, 13, and 14-year-olds for the most part.
Yeah. And what do like I was just sharing that there are parallels between 0 to 3 and 12 to 15. What is your experience? What do you have to say about that, and how to navigate through that?
So if I'm understanding you, from 3 to 13, how do we navigate those years? Is that what you're asking?
So my question is first to understand what are the parallels, the characteristic similarity between 0 to 3 years and 12 to 15 years, and
Okay.
then understanding how we can deal with these situations, because when children are in 0 to 3, they are too young, and it's easy to guide them. But when it comes to 12 to 15, they are not too young and they are not too old, so they think that they know everything. And if
Yes.
we are trying to set boundaries, they feel caged. So it's even more harder to set those limits around them. So how do we navigate when children are between 12 to 15? That's what I was.
Yeah. I think you and I were talking before we started this morning about how much, and I used to say 13-year-olds are just big 3-year-olds. And I didn't mention that both of my children went through 4 years of Montessori school in their preschool years before we shifted them to public school. And so I have a strong appreciation for Montessori philosophy and methods, and learned so much about it that I wish everybody was using Montessori even in our public schools in the US. I wish it was just the expected norm, even though it's not, because I appreciate it so much. So what I realized, right, raising my children and working with young teenagers, is that there's a lot of similarity between 3-year-olds and 13-year-olds. It's just that the issues that they might be presented with are different, but their responses are the same. And I have a not quite 2.5-year-old granddaughter that I was just with this past week for 2 days. And what I notice is she is independent. Let me do it. I want to do it my way. No, don't do it for me. And no, you're doing it wrong. You need to do it this way. And if we don't follow her lead, she blows up. Well, you know what? That's not a whole lot of difference between that and a 13-year-old, even though what they might want to do independently is different from a 2.5 or 3-year-old child. They want independence. They want autonomy. They want to figure it out. They don't want to just be told and led around by the nose and told what to do. They want to figure it out and have the opportunity to do it their way. And so when we interfere with that, we get pushback. So for me, again, it comes back to my initial learning as a teacher was that connection has to be there in order for correction to take hold. So if we don't have connection, anything I try to do to guide the 3-year-old or the 13-year-old is not going to have any foundational ground to stand on. So if we first have that connection that we've hopefully built in 0 to 13 years, by the time they're 12, 13, 15, we have this to stand on so that when they're saying, no, mom, I need to do this my way. And I'm saying, no, you need to do this my way. I'm afraid for you. The world's a scary place out there. Come back to me. Come back to me. They're like, I have to do it my way. So I have to find a way to connect into that and say, okay, what does your way look like? What does that sound like? What are some things you need to be aware of so that doing it your way can keep you safe and help you accomplish what it is that you need? How can I be curious about what your way is so that we can stay connected and I can have an opportunity to say, here are my concerns. How are you going to address that? I need you to be safe. You want to be out at night with your friends. How am I going to know you're safe? What is our communication plan? When can I expect you? Are you going to be at this same place the whole time? Are you planning to go to different places? How will I know which place you're at? So we have to have all of this communication, not because I'm trying to stop you from doing, but because I need you. It's important for you to think about what it is you're doing, why it is you're doing, and what outcome you're trying to achieve so that you can start to anticipate. So if there's, if our audience isn't familiar with positive discipline as a program, every time we do a class or a training, we start with an activity called the 2 lists, and I usually add a 3rd list. And so the first list is about listing all of the challenging behaviors we have from our children. Technology overuse, resistance, defiance, disrespect, bedtime issues, all of those. We list them all off. Okay, so what are the skills and character traits we want to help them grow so that as they go out into the world, they can thrive and be secure and solid in their lives? And the 3rd list is, in order to help them go from those challenging behaviors to using the skills and character traits of thriving, what do they need from us? And so how is this all a learning and growing experience together? So when I think about, okay, my teens want autonomy and independence, there are a lot of what I call micro skills baked into those bigger skills. So to be successfully independent, you need to be able to anticipate what might happen if you do this or that. Be able to understand other people's reactions and read the room about how they're responding to you. Anticipate how you're going to handle a conflict if it comes up or a problem that arises. If your car runs out of gas because they let you drive somewhere, what are you going to do? How are you going to get help? Do you know how to change a tire? And so there are lots of micro skills that go into this big skill of independence and autonomy. So we have to start working, starting in those early ages, to start building those skills and continuing to build them through adolescence.
Yes.
So that was a kind of a long answer. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I was just relating very well. What you just explained about, connecting. It's more of negotiation is how I see it. One step you take forward, and then one step I'm going to take forward, and then we'll see what works best for both of us.
Right.
This I have been trying at home, and what works best over here is not everything my daughter is going to listen, but because there is one step from my side and one step from her side as well, she says, okay, this time I will take a step back and you move forward, but next time perhaps you may have to take a step back. And that negotiation is still continuing because, as you said, the connection was made in early years. So I was just thinking about when you were saying about this the list and challenges and all that, I was just thinking about this episode that happened with my daughter recently where she is right now in grade 9, and it's a lot about academics right now. It's when you have to gear up, and especially when you have Cambridge curriculum, this curriculum and those curriculum, you have to focus and get serious about it. Now, of course, she is serious, but she being from a pure, typical Montessori environment and coming to a highly academic, atmosphere, it was getting a little hard for her to adapt to. And we took 2 hours to get 2 years of time together to understand the way this academic setup works. So, but then, in this age, I think anything other than friendship takes a backseat. It's about your peers, what they wear, what they eat, where they go, how they look. All that matters more than anything else. And how are they treating you as well? Whether they make you feel special or they ignore you. And if they ignore you, what are you going to do best to, be part of that happening group in your school or your friend circle? So we kept saying that she has to understand the fact that as much as friendship is important, it is also important for her to respect and value her time.
Right.
That's not going to, come back, right? So she would say, yeah, I understand all that, Mom, but, my friends are pretty good. They are very helpful and they're going to help me. You don't worry about that. And I said, yeah, all right. I'm sharing my experience of my journey so far. And I'm not asking or forcing you to do anything. All I'm asking you is to understand that someday, if this happens, you know what I had told once. And that happened. They had some exams or something, and she got a mark, and she scored better than her friend who's the topper of the class. And then this topper suddenly started behaving different.
Yeah.
And that day, when she came back, she said, Amma, you were right. So, and that's it. That was our conversation. We didn't dig deep in it. We just kind of have had that understanding among ourselves. What happened after that was the trust that she developed with me. Yeah. And that is the connection happens when we are taking one step forward and sometimes one step back. That negotiation is very important to build that connection is what I feel. In my journey, this is what I'm experiencing so far. So I totally get what you are saying. And it's so important to have those 3 lists that you mentioned just now. Because if we have that mental note, you don't need to write also at times. But if we have that mental note, I think that will take parents to a different level, I believe.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, how do the experiences, as we discussed that earlier, shape these behaviors, and we are talking about raising resilient children, right? So from early years itself, this resilience has to be inculcated. It just doesn't, come on its own. The environment teaches the child to also become resilient, right?
Yes.
or even become emotionally stable. So if we have given those tools to children in early years, how does it look in adolescence? And if it is lacking in the early years, what can we do to still make this phase comfortable for children to navigate through?
Yeah, and I appreciate the connection between responsibility and resilience. And I didn't create this idea, but I've heard one of the trainers, and I can't remember who, maybe it was Jane Nelson herself, talk about responsibility as response ability, the ability to respond. And so when we dig into that interpretation of this word responsibility, what's at play here? If I am able to respond as in a resilient way, I have to be aware of myself, my own emotions, what's happening for me, what options I have, considering what's best for me and my decision making for my now and for my future. That's some pretty complex executive functioning right there. I also have to consider what is at work for the other people in the situation. So how do I respond in a way that maybe I need to meet a deadline because there's something due as a project with my peers or my coworkers or whoever. If there are deadlines and other things that I have to follow through on because that affects other people, even within my family, I need to be responsible about getting ready in the morning so that we leave the house and get to school on time so my parents get to work on time. That means I have to plan out how my morning looks for me so that I get out the door in time. Why it's important that I do that, because it impacts the rest of the family and the needs of the situation. So I'm considering myself, the others, and the situation, all three combined. When I think about all these three things, I have to meet the needs of all of that. Well, think about all the micro skills that are involved. I have to do planning and organization. I have to manage my time. I have to think about the impact of my behavior on myself and others in the future. All of those are what we call executive functioning system skills, and they all happen up here in the frontal lobe. And that's the last part of the brain to develop. So for young women, we're developing our executive functioning probably from in utero all the way until our death. We're always building new neural connections. And this part of the brain isn't really in its fully functioning zone until the mid-20s for young women and the late 20s for young men. So I used to tell my junior high parents, 13, 14-year-olds, your children are only half-baked. You can't take them out of the oven yet. So if you're a baker, you know that if you're baking a cake and you take it out too soon, instead of rising up, it goes and falls flat. So we can't take them out of the oven yet. They're not done. We can't expect them to act like fully functioning adults when they're not fully functioning adults here yet. And we can keep building those skills so that they keep developing those neural connections. So responsibility is a combination of a whole lot of skills that we can develop over time there for our children. And when they fall short, like I have a son who's always late. I have a son who thinks he's late if he's not early. And then I have another son who is just perpetually late. It's like time management is something, he's 29 years old. And he still struggles with being on time because time management is something his brain doesn't grab. He's much better than when he was younger, but we all kind of laugh about how sometimes you need to tell him, we need to leave 15 minutes before you really need to leave, so that he's there when you really need to leave. And he can joke about it too, because he recognizes his brain goes somewhere else. He gets busy and unfocused, and there he goes. So I think we just need to be really watchful, especially as we have more than one child. This child may be really great at time management. This child needs some help. So this child used to be able to get dressed while he'd watch TV in the morning. And yes, I let them do that. Probably I shouldn't have. Just while they were getting ready. This child was able to eat his breakfast, get dressed, get stuff ready to go while the TV was on, and he can manage it. If this child had a TV on, that was all he could focus on. So he had to get ready in the other room. I couldn't let him be in the room where the TV was. So we had to we had to shift the environment for a younger son so that he could be successful in accomplishing the goal. And that helps him develop awareness about what he needs in order to be able to focus. And so I think being open about the challenges, and older son would have his challenges, and younger son's challenge was focus and follow through. And we would just be open and say, we need to focus on this. Let's see if you can do this. How much time is it going to take you? Let's set the timer and see if you can get this much done before the timer goes off, and then take a break. So I think being really open with our kids about their skill set, what you're really good at, emphasize that. What are some things that are challenging for you, and how can we work together to grow your skills? Because you're going to need those when I'm not around to help you with it. And so I think that whole growing up process, starting with when they're little and continuing all the way into adolescence, is really, really important. And I'll just share a quick story about how that played out for us over time. So starting when he was very little, we were always careful about focus and follow through with younger son. And then when he was a sophomore in high school, his older brother had gone to college. And at that point, I was overly checking on him. They have a portal on our school's computer system where I, as a parent, could go in and see what his grades were, what assignments were missing, and all of that stuff. I was a daily checker, and I would tell him each evening, and Ethan, I see this on the portal, I see that on the portal. Do you have this? Do you have that? Help you organize. And about that time in his sophomore year, so he was 15, he said, Mom, in 3 years, I'm going to have to do this all by myself. You need to start letting me do it by myself. Hey, that was a really important observation for him to make for himself. And it was a very kind and firm way of telling me, Mom, you need to back off. So I knew that if I just backed out completely, it was likely to crash. But I said, okay, so what structure could we create so that you are staying on top of things and we still have regular check-ins so that I don't explode with anxiety about how things are going? So we decided together on weekly check-in on Sunday. So instead of checking the portal every day, I checked it on Sunday and we looked at it together so he could see what he was doing. And he would give me a check-in, because my goal then was not to mention anything during the week about his work, because I was doing too much. Nathan, how was your day? What did you do? What's due tomorrow? What do you have to work on? Blah, 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 blah. Like, is all that I can talk about school? How much, what does that feel like to him? If all Mom can talk to me about school, is this all I am, is my grades? No, you are more than your grades. And I needed to make that shift. So he helped me make that shift. We did it together. So we started with regular check-ins on Sundays. And I can ask, how did I do this week about not hassling you? Well, Mom, you did mostly okay. Or you did great. Or, yeah, you were kind of annoying this week, Mom. So we can have these open conversations because we have connection. And that year, I needed that to help back myself away from him, and he needed it to forward himself in his independence and capability and his own sense of capability. So when we have that connection, we can have authentic, transparent conversation about what's going on and how we work together to figure it out. And so I think that is the foundational tool, is connection before correction, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. I love the way you explained. You split the word responsibility into two: response, the ability to respond, basically.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, that's resilience in short.
Yes.
The ability
because as they learn these responsibility skills, they will be resilient when they anticipate challenges and they know, oh, I came up on a challenge and I figured it out. What am I going to do? Well, that's resilience. How do I keep moving even though I had this hiccup along the way? That's resilience. And responsibility is really a core concept of resilience. And I hadn't really thought about it that way before. So I was really glad you asked that question.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, as much as we keep talking about, and every school where I visit and I speak to the parents and I ask them, what is your goal? How do you want to see your child when the child grows up? And they say, I want my child to be resilient. And when I ask them the meaning of resilience, they just know that to cope up with challenges, to cope up with trauma, and that is resilience is the definition most people understand. But in a very simple form, just now you mentioned the ability to respond, and that is resilience. And it can be anything. Time management, as you said, time management. The stress that my mother is hovering around me for following through all the things that is happening in school, and yet coming and speaking up and saying that, Mom, you have to stop, you have to slow down. That also is resilience. But nobody understands these small things. But this is what this is how we are shaping these children. Now, what happens is when we don't understand these small changes and the small responses that the child is giving us, we stop the child or we react to the child, and that is that is an onset of conflicts. The way you just shared, it reminded me of me 2 years ago when I was hovering around my daughter, and it was because she had just started her conventional schooling, and I didn't know what to do, and she had no experience of sitting and writing exams for long and all of that. So more than her, it was me who was anxious. I was my heart would go out to her every time I would go to drop her to school. I will see her and I'll be so emotional. And one fine day she comes and she tells me, Mom, I feel you are more stressed than me. It's all right. I have adapted well in the school. Everybody likes me and I find the school pretty fun. So calm down. And that was the day I became a little, calmer and yeah, it gave me a comfort that yes, she can go through this. She can take this stride pretty well. So, but yes, this journey is again like this. It is never smooth. It always has ups and
No,
downs.
it's not.
So at times we are pretty comfortable, but at times we are also pretty pushy. And most of the time, when we as parents become pushy, conflicts begin. The child
And
starts to, run away from us, and I have seen it every time I'm pushing on doing something that she doesn't want to do. She always tries to run away with excuses or just tries somehow to avoid that entire work so that she doesn't have to come and face us or confront us. So, and I know that most parents have this struggle. So, how do you see? I mean, do we have to discipline the child? What are the freedom and boundaries that we can set for these children that we can face as less conflict as possible?
I really appreciate that. And what comes forward for me as I was talking about my son and you're talking about your daughter is another micro skill here of self-advocacy. We want our children to be able to stand up for themselves out there in the world, right? Because they will have lots of opportunity for people to come at them this way. And we want them to say, "Oh yeah, well, I'm not under you. I'm with you. I deserve dignity and respect too." And so teaching our children the skill of self-advocacy means we have to let them advocate for themselves with us so they can practice that skill. And we can respond, not react. I mean, sometimes we react. Yeah. How can we respond in a way that is respectful? And I really appreciate the three-legged stool analogy in positive discipline of kindness and firmness at the same time. So too much kindness is permissiveness. Too much firmness is authoritarian. How do we walk that line of kind and firm at the same time? That can be really challenging. So kindness, according to Jane Nelson, respects the needs of the child or the other person. Firmness respects the needs of ourselves and the needs of the situation. So when you have a three-legged stool and one of those legs is too short, your stool wobbles. So I need to listen to my child when they're advocating for a certain way of being or doing. And I need to listen with an eye for, okay, what is their need? Not exactly what their want is, because wants are different from needs. They need a sense of belonging and significance, a feeling of connection, and it may not be with me. They need connection with their friends at this age. They need to feel significant, like they have a contribution to make, like their contribution is valued. And along those lines are a need for appropriate attention, appropriate power and autonomy, a sense of fairness and justice, and a sense of capability. So those are their basic needs. So what is the need that they're speaking to me about? The need might be, okay, Mom, I want to be able to go out and be with my friends and never have to answer to you. I'll come home when I come home. Okay, what's the need that's speaking there? If I look, the behavior above the surface of the water, like an iceberg poking out of the water, is the smallest part of the iceberg. What's the bigger part of the iceberg under the surface? The bigger part that I'm hearing is you want to be in your friend's presence because you need that sense of belonging and independence and to feel like you can do what you want to do in the world. And so those are the needs. The want is you want that to look like staying out all night without being accountable to me at all. Well, my need as a parent is to make sure that you're safe, to make sure that you are making appropriate decisions so you don't get hurt. And so I can sleep at night. I need to get my sleep. So it is not okay for you to stay out all night. And what's a reasonable time for you to be home? Okay, if we decide it's 11 o'clock or we decide it's midnight, or you handle getting in by 10 o'clock responsibly. As you get a little older, maybe we'll stretch it to 11 or even midnight. And we need to establish then. And so this is all what I call a solution-focused conversation. Here's the problem. You want to stay out all night. I think that's unreasonable. So what are some options we have for communication, for limits, for boundaries, etc.? If you're going to stretch the boundary, first you have to respect this boundary. So if we start with, you need to be in by 10 o'clock, I need to know where you are. If I don't hear from you in a certain amount of time, I start to worry. So how can you let me know? Handle that well for a while, and we'll talk about stretching it to a little bit later. So I was giving an example of this the other day that when my older son went to high school, our system at the time kept ninth graders in our junior high system. So when he went to high school, his sophomore year was actually the second year of high school. So he was 15. And he played in the marching band. And so they had summer band camp getting ready for marching band season. And he met the upperclassmen, those juniors and seniors who were in charge of the trombone section or the whole band as leaders or whatever. And he came home saying, oh, all these things are happening. And I'm going to go ride with this person and I can ride with that person and they can drive. And he couldn't drive yet. And we said, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't want you getting in the car with anybody we don't know, and you don't know whether they're a good driver or not. And for him, if they were in a leadership position, they must be good at everything, so it must be safe. No, not really. So we said, here was our boundary. You may not ride with other kids when we don't know anything about them. You may go to all of the activities. If you want to go to the pancake house after the football game, which they all liked to do, and you have pancakes at 11 o'clock at night, wherever you want to go, I will get up and take you there. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. If that's where the party is, I will take you there. Because I know it's all part of the thing that they do in high school. But no, you may not ride with anybody else. How long is this going to go on? And we said, we don't know. We've never done this before. You get the benefit of being the older child. We have never experienced this before. But if you will trust us, that it will not be forever. If you will abide by this guideline, you will get to go where you want to go and do what you want to do with us driving the car. And we want you to watch these kids who can drive. Notice how they behave. Notice what they do that you think is stand up respectful, and other things. Yeah, maybe I don't know if I want to get into a car with that kid because he doesn't pay attention very, like you're driving around in a 2,000-pound piece of metal. You need to trust who's ever driving that. So you watch and learn, and then we'll talk more in a month. And then over time, we listen to other parents, and we'd hear these kids' names come up. So-and-so is really responsible. So-and-so is a great kid. I trust him with my life. It's like, okay, you can, by the end of the first quarter, after 9 or 10 weeks, he was able to ride with this person and that person and that person because we had heard good things about them and he thought they were pretty good. And by the end of the semester, we were trusting his judgment to get into a car with people he respected. And so I think because we had a conversation about it, even though he was mad, we set the boundaries and said, this is it. If you'll respect it, the boundary will come out farther soon. I just can't give you a deadline yet. And then gradually the boundaries expand as you handle the little ones well, then they can get bigger. So I think, again, we just have to be transparent with our kids about, here are my concerns, here are your needs. How do we both get our needs met in a respectful way? And I think some issues are really little and some issues are pretty big. And if we can get in the habit of having those conversations, solutions are related to the problem, respectful to everyone involved, reasonable, we think we can do it, and helpful in solving the problem. So if we can use those 3 R's and H to look at our list of possibilities and say, yeah, that one's not respectful to me. No, that one's not reasonable for you. What's left after we cross out what doesn't meet the 3 R's and the H means we can try these things. Let's try them for a while and see how they work. Let's come back and talk about it. Do we need to tweak the plan? Have you respected the boundaries? Okay, let's expand them a little bit. So we can go through this process, and I appreciate the structure that positive discipline tools give us for going through this process of letting our kids individuate so that they have that independence and autonomy in ways that make us feel more comfortable, even if we are still a little anxious. Because how are you not going to be? Right? The first time they go out driving by themselves, the guideline was when they're driving by themselves and coming out, when you get home, I don't care what time it is, please come poke me and let me know you're home. That's all I need. And then I can sleep better the rest of the night.
Absolutely.
So, okay, we did it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we do a similar kind of thing where we have a rule of the house, and the rule, each family has their own rule of the house, and it may differ. So if you come uh, negotiating with me based on someone else's rules, it's not going to work here. And this is quite normal these days when these children have to hang
Right.
on to their friends. They would she comes and she has to go to some friend's place or maybe meet up somewhere, and she is like, my friend has called me and I'm going to go. And I'm like, who's there to look after, or who's going to take responsibility for you if you're going to someone's house or
Right.
for a birthday party or so? Yeah, her mom will be there or her dad is going to be there. I said, that's all right, but the message should come from the parent to me, and
Right.
I am okay to send you, and not really when you as friend group has decided this. That's not going to work.
Right.
She's like, but why? Because I said this protocol is followed by us. We do that, and this is the rule of our house. So
Right.
that's going, but it doesn't work everywhere. My friends are fine with it. Even if they don't speak to the mom, it's okay. And I have seen that. I said, yeah, that may be true, but not over here. And because we have been so consistent with this, that finally, as you said, when they are able to, follow this boundary, then you can extend the boundary a little further. So over here,
Right.
she says, yes, she goes and speaks to her friends, and she insists them every time she has to go out and meet friends. She tells the friend to speak to her parent and make them speak to me or my husband in order for her to be allowed to go out. So,
Right.
I mean, children at this age, especially in this age, they really are too much into pushing the boundaries. But when we are giving them that